Hey guys, Lizardlea here for Larksfoot Crochet Afghan Day 6. I said 5 in my original intro, which I'm going to play now because I did stuff and I don't want to redo it. And I've also started actually crocheting, so if I show it to you now, it won't be from day 5. So I don't want to be a liar. Hey guys, Lizardlea here for Larksfoot Crochet Afghan Day 5. I think I'm on day 5. One more than the previous one. I threw it on David because obviously I am tiny. And David is a lot taller. And I'm planning to give this to my dad, who is closer to David's height than mine. And it went from his toes to like mid-chest, and I was like, well, I think that'll actually work because I don't think my dad sleeps with a blanket like this, and it could just get thrown on the couch for all I know. I don't know what they're going to plan on doing with it. I mean, it's pretty thin, so I do actually think my dad will like it more than my mom, because my mom's the one who's always cold, and my dad is like me and runs really hot, and it's weighted blankets don't sound good to me. So, I mean, it's a pretty big blanket. Let's see, I'm gonna have to back up even more, aren't I? Okay, we're just gonna, we'll turn this over here. And it's, could I do it this way? There we go. There it is. So, it's not a tiny blanket, but I do want to add on just a little bit more. So, like, this will probably only be like 1, maybe 2 hours of footage. It's probably not going to be a ton, but yeah. I'm just gonna go crochet now. I almost said cross stitch. I do that every time. Okay, what are we talking about?
Dragged across the concrete.
So that was the one that David was like, oh, it's gonna be so gory and bad and blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
And it was not that bad.
It's still definitely, like, by the standards of any other movie, gory and violent. But yes, by the standards of his previous...
A bone saw tomahawk. It
Bone
was like a
tomahawk,
2.
yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah.
what it was.
Yeah.
Bone tomahawk, yeah.
Yeah.
It was like a 2.
It was absolutely much less violent than anything he'd previously done. So I actually appreciate that because I don't think the violence really adds much. I think that, like, violence can be used effectively to convey, like, certain scenes and certain ideas, and like, oh wow, yeah, that is way different, or oh, how horrible this is, blah 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 blah. But man, I don't know about Bone Top. Well, I guess my problem is like, I feel like the movies are. It's unfortunate because the movies are good outside of their violence. Like, whereas most violent movies are just like they're slasher flicks or whatever, and it's like, well, yeah, it's horribly violent, but if you like that, it's good. It's a shame because, like, Bone Tomahawk with some censoring is still a great movie. Like, just some discretion shots rather than showing certain things would make that a much more viewable film, and it's still a really well-made movie. And Cell Block 99, not so much. There's no way to do that. But this one, I still wouldn't recommend for most people. But it's a really good sort of film noir. Yeah, I'd say it's a film noir. Maybe not a film noir, but I guess it's a heist movie, technically, sort of.
Not from the point of view of the heisters.
Well, yes, that's why it's a heist movie, because they're heisting. That's what makes a heist movie, is when you heist something.
Yeah, I guess ultimately they were trying to steal.
Yeah.
It just wasn't the way
It didn't go down the
originally
way
intended.
Right. So I guess let's go over synopsis. Basically, there's a couple of cops played by Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson, of all people, and they are less than kind with a drug bust. It's not. I thought it would be like really extreme, but it's kind of not. Like it's actually kind of what you see a lot of on like standard TV show, where like they justify it because like, oh, this guy's a terrible drug dealer or whatever, so we're gonna like stand on his head or whatever. Again, not like violently like crush a skull, just like the sort of rough handling that you generally see.
I mean, they were very extreme. Once they had him in handcuffs, they were still.
Yeah, no, they weren't
They went
okay, but I
over,
was like,
yeah.
I was expecting, especially from this.
Oh
director,
yeah, I thought there was going to be a
worse.
lot of like blood, but like.
Yeah, I thought they're gonna like break his nose and then like his arms and legs or God knows what else. Again, it's
Yeah.
he's a very violent director. So point is, they do this, and of course someone's filming when they do it, and so the cops are like, "Yep, you're getting suspended. This isn't the first time this has happened."
And then the two of them are like, "But he's not going to be giving those drugs to kids anymore."
Yeah, at school.
And the chief is like, "Yeah, that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
Especially because you're both white and he was Hispanic."
Yeah. Like it doesn't like do the woke crusading either, like where it's like, oh yeah, it's only because of woke people that, like where it's like trying to push a different agenda. It's a pretty decent and realistic handling of it. That doesn't mean like I think that people do this all the time or that it would be okay if they did, but it just again it feels like they're trying to tell a story, not push an agenda.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, they basically you kind of find out that one cop is trying, the younger cop, Vince Vaughn, is trying to propose to his girlfriend and get a house and keep her in nice things, because like he doesn't have the best life, he has an okay life, but he thinks she's stellar and blah 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 blah. And Mel Gibson, his wife is an ex-cop, and she's got multiple sclerosis, and his daughter, like we see, getting harassed at schools. Because she's a young girl and they're in a bad part of town.
Well, and they know that her dad is a cop who has shown in the past that he's kind of racist.
Yeah, and that's like a big part of it too.
Yeah.
If anything, it's not nearly as good as American History X, but again, it kind of. Yeah, but it does at least try to kind of like portray this as a realistic thing rather than having an agenda in either direction of like, well, just exposure to people makes you think terrible things.
I have to cut that.
Yeah.
You said a bad word.
Exposure to certain. It's ironic given the content of the show, but yes.
Yeah.
I know.
I want to monetize my videos,
No,
and I don't want people to.
I understand.
Oh no, my child overheard that.
Granted, they should not be hearing this one, anyways. But I
mean, yeah. If they don't know that by now, well,
so,
sorry.
Long story short, they start planning a heist. He basically calls in Mel Gibson. He calls in a favor with an old guy who he kind of let go one day, and says, hey, I want the name of a contact who's a seller or a pusher, basically thinking we're going to do a air quotes victimless crime. He wants to rob a drug dealer or something like that. So his goal was to stake this guy out, rob this drug dealer when he was making a deal, and then he'd have enough money to set or a drug supplier, maybe like not just some low level guy but like a major one. And then that way he would have enough money to set himself up. And then his partner kind of goes like, what the heck are you doing? And he tells him, and he's like, okay, I want in. But he's not super happy about it. It's one of those, like, he's not sure if he's okay with it or not. But he's like, I believe the line is, I want in until I want out.
Yeah.
And he's very questionable, like, dude, have you gone over the line here? Like, this is pretty crazy. Are you sure? And they both do it as civilians, is the argument. Like, we're not acting as police officers. We've been suspended. So that's why I'm doing this now, because it's not me as a cop, it's me as a civilian. And again, that doesn't make it okay, but again, they're just trying to show the kind of characters. So they find this guy who is living literally in a very secluded place. Like, it's in a room that doesn't exist on any floor plan, doesn't have any windows. It's like basically a secret room, and that's what they're watching. In the meantime, during all this, we've also been introduced to a black guy who just got out of jail, and you see him meet his mom and younger brother. And
his younger brother is in a wheelchair.
Yes, and his mom is turning tricks to try and pay for things. So they, he basically says, yeah, I'm out, but one of his buddies who picked him up from prison says, hey, do you want in on any jobs? And he's like, yeah, let me know what there is. And so we know he's going to be in some sort of job, and obviously we can put together that it's going to be the same job that the cops are going to try and hit. finally, the third kind of unrelated looking story is these very professional assassin style guys are doing these robberies where like one guy walks in, he's carrying like incredibly expensive guns and like, you know, completely dressed in black and whatnot, and he's robbing a gas station, you know, or a...
I think it was a gas station.
No, it wasn't a gas station. There's a
Well, it was like a chain by a gas
no,
station.
it's supposed to be a little grocery store, corner store.
Yeah.
Like there's a bodega. There's the word I wanted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's robbing a bodega. And, you know, it's like obviously kind of staged where he's a professional and, you know, kills a civilian and this bodega owner in like absolute cold blood. Like it's kind of portrayed like
he walks in and he's like, "You have 5 seconds to give me everything in your cash drawer." He pulls it out, and then the civilian walks over. You know, like he didn't hear it or something, or he was trying to break it up.
He comes in from the outside.
Oh, that's what it was. So he kills the pedestrian, and then he turns and he kills the cashier,
who had been going for a shotgun at that point. So you're like not exactly sure if he would have let him live, but it's already very sinister feeling. And then he
shoots the camera, grabs the money, and leaves.
Well, no, he shoots the camera. He shoots up a bunch of other things as well to make it look more frantic. Is I believe the idea that like this wasn't a professional. This was just some guy who lost his cool and shot the whole place up.
Yeah, that's right. He did shoot at a bunch of chips or whatever.
Yeah, chips and various other parts of the building.
Yeah.
And we see another guy just like cold-blooded murder. I believe 2 drug dealers in the middle of a drug deal. Or something like that. I forgot what it was.
He did another of the whole like you have 5 seconds.
Yeah, but it was a different guy. It turns out they look almost identical because you never.
They
see their face.
They wear the same stuff and the face masks
They're like
and everything.
White guys wearing like weird masks, yeah, or wearing like all black and a baklava. But anyways, so that's kind of setting the scene. Like there's this mysterious activity going on. There's guys that want to, you know, heist. Basically, just this like
bank.
What they think it's a drug deal. Sorry, no, I meant the cops. The cops want to. You
said they.
Yeah, sorry. The cops want to, you know, heist whatever this drug deal / supplier thing is, and try and get enough money out of it to kind of like retire / set themselves up. And you know, there's this black kid who's gonna, you know, be helping them. Not the cops, but probably involved in whatever this illicit deal is. The big twist, spoilers, more spoilers from here on out, I guess, but again, I deal with movies like this. There can't be too many people who are like, oh yeah, this is exactly what I like to watch. Is that as they're watching them, they start going like, okay, what's going on? Because you see them buy this like armored truck that's got airless tires that look like normal tires. And like
slits in the side of the van.
Yeah, so you can like stick a gun out. So like it's a modified armored truck. And they see them basically come out in it, and the black guys have put on makeup so they look like they're white, and that's all.
They notice. They're like, wait a minute, those are the same guys.
Yeah, those are the same 2 guys, and they finally realize this isn't a drug deal. Like something else is going on. What's going on here? And then it starts to go from there where they suddenly realize, oh, this is a bank robbery. And we get like a side story on the bank robbery of what's her face from Dexter. Is a mother who has postpartum depression and doesn't want to leave her kid, and this is the first time she left her kid, and that felt a little unnecessary, honestly.
Yeah, like, I didn't even feel bad, because at that point I was like, well, she's gonna die.
Yeah, it was
like,
so obvious what they were doing. It's like, I'm not sure this hits the way you wanted to, because it's hard for me to care.
Like, if they had made her the hostage, I feel like that would have been better. Because then I would have been like, all right, maybe she has a chance because she's not one of the dead ones.
No,
but
even then,
like, they kill her so quickly.
I'm actually more glad they kill her quickly, because even if then, like, if they made her a hostage, I'm like, you literally introduced this character halfway through the movie just so we can, and with the sappiest, like, oh, I can't leave my baby, today's my first day back at work, backstory, so we know she's probably a goner because that's why she's here, for us to feel horrible when she dies. Which you do, you know, it's sad, but at the same time it just felt kind of artificial that they set all that up rather than just have her be any normal innocent woman working at the bank and then just having her say, like, the exact same line she says before she dies, like, I have a baby, like, you know, his name is such and such, can you make sure he gets this? So either way...
they blow off her hand first, and then they kill her.
That is one of the more violent scenes. They basically rob the bank, and it's very, again, sinister and planned and in control. Like, a lot of the bank robberies you see in movies and whatnot are all these, like, big eclectic affairs. They literally aren't speaking. They're playing a modified tape. that they've already pre-recorded, and like stopping it at certain moments.
Yeah, and they'll rewind it and play the same thing again if somebody asks a question.
Yeah, and it's all very sinister because it's very obvious that they know what they're doing, and they have absolutely no moral regrets about it whatsoever, despite being more horrible than they need to be. There's some very horrible things they threaten to do, and that's, I thought, what was going to make this movie this guy's kind of movie. So he may have shot those scenes and he just couldn't get it past the censors without it getting an NC-17 rating. So I don't know, but I actually thought it worked way better that they did a discretion thing, like I've talked about with his other movies, where we see the cops are like following them, trying to decide if they want to call it in. You know, like, should we call this in, or are we still trying to like rob the robbers? And they don't call it in. And there's some justification / self-justifying done with like, look, the moment we saw them leave the garage, we could have called right then and it would have been too late. Like, there was nothing we could have done to stop this. But it's probably not true, because that's Mel Gibson trying to justify it, while Vince Vaughn feels like terrible about this, because you drive by and you see like the bodies that they left behind.
And oh yeah, there's blood everywhere.
And there's some blood in some very specific spots, which means that certain threats they made were followed through on, which I'm not going to go into detail, but are quite gross.
Oh yeah.
But
oh no, one of the things they said was if we call the cops now, it's going to make it worse because it's going to get escalated.
Yeah, they'll just
It's not just going to be the hostages fighting back, it's going to be the police involved as well.
Because, right, they try to make a call that, like, if the hostages just play along and everything, it'll be fine, because they figure they won't kill anybody, they'll just rob the place and go. Which is, at that point, you also find out what the two drivers, one of them being the black kid that we met earlier and his friend, kid is an overuse here. I think he's in his 20s, late 20s probably, maybe even 30s.
Probably went to prison when he was a kid, though.
Yeah.
So,
we find that out later.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's, he even says, or one of them, he says, like, what was that? Like, you said we wouldn't hurt them as long as nobody fought back. And, you know, like, so obviously that's part of the point here, is these guys are, like, just pure evil. They're, like, while there are some, like, interesting parallels being played with, like, the black kid, because, like, of course he's got a family and whatnot, and they're having problems, and, like, all the other characters, these guys are just pure, utter evil, and unquestionably so. So they follow them to where there's this, like...
They being the cops.
The cops, yes. Cops follow the armored car to where there's this, like, hidden gas station, and they ambush them, essentially, when they are trying to change vehicles, because they, you know, feel this is as good a spot as any.
Before the ambush, though, they hear over the radio that the
5 people were killed or something,
and someone is missing.
Yeah.
So they're like, they took a hostage.
Yes. And we know a bit about the hostage, and I don't think there's any details that need to be going there, except other than it's, again, horrible and evil.
Yep.
And so it turns into this standoff situation where the cops, because the Vince Vaughn character has a sniper rifle and is like ex-military, used to...
He knows how to use it, basically.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing, so he's kind of got a shot on them, and they flip their armored truck over, but at the same time, they don't want to approach the truck because it's dangerous, and it becomes this standoff scenario.
And I'm kind of annoyed nothing ever really came of it, but the gas tank on the police car was leaking. And I kept waiting for an explosion or a fire or something, and nothing.
I actually kind of prefer that because that's way more realistic, I think.
Is it?
To an extent, yes. Like, the gas explosions you see in a lot of movies are very unrealistic. Now, a leaking gas tank, maybe, but I think that was part of the point, was to, again, add more tension to the scene.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's going to happen. And then, I don't think there's any point going into detail how it all plays out, but short version, the black guy's friend is killed. The black guy gets away, because they have both put together at this point that, like, these guys are going to kill them. They have absolutely...
Oh, yeah, they had plans to just escape and get away.
Yeah, and so they had earlier set up hidden guns in the armored car.
With saran wrap on them, I believe?
Yeah, saran wrap, so you wouldn't have to wipe off fingerprints. So they make their move and try to escape, and of course, one gets killed, again, fairly horribly.
Yeah.
And the other... the
one
with the friend, the brother in the wheelchair gets away, of course, and so we now have this weird 3-way standoff where the cops don't exactly know what's going on. At some point in all of this, the hostage is killed because they basically blackmail her, threaten her.
Yeah, they get her license and they're like, "Do you have family members at this address?
Yeah.
If you don't do what we say, they're gonna die.
So she goes and shoots at the cops. So the cops shoot. Well, specifically Mel Gibson shoots her.
But she shot Vince Vaughn in the chest, like the side.
Yeah, in the
like,
side.
Yeah.
And so
it was fatal very quickly.
Yeah.
So
Vince Vaughn dies. There's some sad stuff related to that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's worth mentioning, but
Yeah.
like, yeah, he's trying to propose, and he basically finds out that he gets shot down.
Yep.
And granted, it was a weird proposal in the circumstances,
True.
yeah, it's a big part of the thing. And so Vince Vaughn is now dead, so at this point, I don't know if there's only one or two people left in the armored car.
Two left, I think.
But between the black guy and Mel Gibson, they managed to kill the last two people in the armored car. But now the black kid and Mel Gibson are standing off from each other because, they have no reason to trust each other, basically. And even though we as the viewer kind of know that, hey, like, neither one of you is a terrible human.
Yeah, you're just here for the money. And split it 50-50 and leave.
Yeah, and so basically the black guy blackmails Mel Gibson by saying, I have footage of you shooting that woman, so we're gonna split the money 50-50 because they like basically get rid of their guns, no weapons, whatever. And you're going, but if you ever come after me or do anything, I'll send that footage to the news,
Yep.
And so it's them working together for a brief moment, but of course you see each one of them get hands on a gun when they're apart because like one car can't be driven, so someone has to drive while the other one tows it to a river so they can get rid of it and blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
And it ends in a standoff where the black guy has a gun Mel Gibson pulls a gun, pulls a gun and puts it to the black guy's neck and says, you need to delete that footage because otherwise you've got leverage over me that I don't have over you. Just trying to get rid of temptation because he doesn't trust anybody, which is kind of the roll credits thing because way earlier his boss had said, hey, like, I know that, like, this is not an easy job and there's, grays and the blacks and the whites, but, like, you're getting, like, rougher and rougher. You're just like a spike-covered steamroller or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You have, like, no faith in humanity left. Like, it's getting to you. And so, of course, he's holding his gun to the kid. And I'm pretty sure, we never checked and confirmed this, but we know as the audience that his gun has no bullets in it. Mel Gibson's.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, the kid says, hey, get that gun off me, get that gun off me. Mel Gibson doesn't know the kid has a gun, so the kid pulls his gun and shoots Mel Gibson. And he's like, why did you have to do that, man? I never would have, like, used it. I'm not a bad person. I never even killed anybody because I only went to jail because I beat up the guy who put my younger brother in a wheelchair and like a drug deal or something like that. Like, I never wanted to harm anyone. Like, you should have just trusted me, man. And so it was supposed to be like a 60-40 split, and he's like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore, but I'll make sure your
family's
wife
taken care of.
Yeah, your wife and daughter are taken care of. And we get to see
him, his brother, his mom in a mansion.
In a beautiful mansion, yeah. And then we cut to, and it's like a year or two later or something.
I think so.
And then we cut to
the mom and the daughter.
Yeah.
Daughter brings in a really, really heavy box.
Yeah.
Says it's addressed to their dad, or to her dad, I believe it was.
No, it's from dad.
From dad, that's what it was.
Even though he's been missing for God knows how long at this point, because no one finds any of these bodies.
Because he buried them.
And the dad did tell the mom that, like, hey, I'm going to do the sort of thing you can't hear about. Like, I'm going to do something to try and get us out of this. You don't want to know. And so she says to the daughter, like, let me open this, without you in the room. It's like, a dad and me thing. And then, it's
gold bars.
Bunch of gold bullion. Because that's what they stole, was gold bullion that's, basically untraceable. That was the end? That is the end. And, I don't know, what did you think?
I liked it more than Bone Tomahawk.
Oh, yeah, easily.
Like, just because... I skipped most of Bone Tomahawk because I was just like, I'm just here for the gore at this point because I was not intrigued by the story.
I have the exact opposite take on Bone Tomahawk, where I thought it was a great Western. It was like kind of gritty, it was messing with realism, it's got a little bit of horror, and then I just wish they hadn't turned on the hyper-violence at the end because I'm like, man, this was already a really good Western. Like a horror Western that wasn't like going super out there to be horror, it was just being very realistic about how difficult it was to live back then. Like, yeah, you got a cut, could get infected and it'll kill you. Sorry, sucks to be you. Like, we don't have antibiotics or like all these cool medicines or anything. It's just a rough life, and then it went places. But whatever. So Bone Tomahawk.
Yeah, so I mostly skipped. I saw the gore and I was like, yeah, I see why this bothers David, because it's
Bad.
splitting a dude in half. Yeah, that's ouchie. I don't know, like westerns aren't really my jam, so I just wasn't intrigued from the get-go. Literally the only reason I watched it is because you said you watched it and you're like, wow, yeah, no, the last like 15 minutes, oof. So I watched a bit, like I didn't skip everything, but I was mostly just like, I want to get to the end, and I was like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, no, that was bad.
Okay.
This one, I don't necessarily want to rewatch it, but I could see myself rewatching it. Like if Robert wanted to watch it with us, I'd be okay with that.
I would probably want something else. Like I'd probably be on my phone for bits of it because like the tension is gone because you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it didn't feel that long.
Oh yeah, no, it didn't feel nearly as long as it actually was.
And that's with some really remember a majority of this movie is very slow. Like it's they're on
a stakeout.
Yeah, where they're just sitting there watching.
Which is a great movie, by the way, very funny.
And watching Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson just interact is really well done.
Like they had really good chemistry.
Yeah, I really love Vince Vaughn as an actor, a serious actor, and it's just such a shame that I feel like between what was it called, True Detective season 2, which everyone railed on him for, which I think was just unfair.
I love him as a non-comedic actor.
Oh, I agree.
He's spectacular in drama. Oh my god.
Yeah, I agree. And instead he kind of got railed on, and then I'm guessing that him doing this is... Well, he did another movie with this director, the one I haven't seen, Cell Block.
Yeah. I want to watch that one.
Yeah, that's going to be all up your alley with hyperviolence. I've seen the one scene I want to see where he basically Street Fighter 2's a car. But I think he's great at dramatic roles, but I know this director is somewhat controversial, including his decision to choose to cast Mel Gibson, since he's still somewhat of a no-go after his anti-Semitic outburst while getting pulled over while driving drunk, I believe.
Come on.
10 years ago, 20 years ago now? How long ago was that? I don't know.
I don't know.
It's been a while. But, so either way, unfortunately, I suspect that if he's doing stuff like this, he's probably not capable of landing the big names, because they're like, well, it's not a comedy. And he's like, yeah, I want to do drama. Again, I'm speculating like hell here. So, point being, I really like Vince Vaughn in dramatic roles. And he did a great job having chemistry with Mel Gibson and just their characters having believable interactions that actually still matter and you're interested to see, rather than just oh yay, it's a stakeout scene where nothing happens.
Something eventually happened.
Yeah, things eventually definitely happen. So yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it for most people because, you know.
Of his 3 movies, I would recommend it before any of the other 2. Not just because...
You haven't seen one of them.
I know enough. And I've seen enough. Because not only is it less hyper-violent, I think it's doing a lot more with its material. Bone Tomahawk felt like a really good, kind of realistic Western take, until it suddenly became this is a gore fest. What's the most horrifying thing we can do? Horror movie ending. Which was an interesting way to do it, but yeah.
I mean, ultimately, I think one of the most horrifying things was just what they did to the women.
Yes, exactly. But again, that's kind of it's so over the top and there's an interesting thing there, but given what the movie had been versus what it became, it was really jarring. Cell Block, to what I have seen, is pretty much that way from the get-go. There's a very brief period. And again, he's got some interesting characters and he does some good work with them, but it's mostly here's a new kind of gory movie. But even just looking at the plots, it's a much more ambitious and interesting plot. It's like a heist gone wrong with a lot of different characters going on in it, trying to cover the nuance of how living a stressful life makes terrible people or makes them make terrible decisions and whatnot. And it's way more ambitious plot-wise versus what if we had an excuse to have horrible things happen to people, which is kind of what his other ones are.
I mean, okay, so if you were to get rid of the scene of the guy being tortured and the women, what would you say about Bone Tomahawk? That was it.
Well, no, because the rest of the movie, like, there are many other scenes of violence in that movie that are very realistic, like when they get ambushed out in the desert, because, like, there's people fighting.
No, I know. What I'm saying is, like, it feels like you're saying that movie, those two scenes were to the detriment of the rest of it. If you were to just see, like, a cut version where that stuff was taken out, you know, like when they're torturing the guy, they only show you the main guy's reaction.
Yeah.
So you don't actually know what's happening. You know it's bad, but you don't have to see it. Would you still feel that way? Like, would you like it more?
I would like it a bit more, yes, I think. I don't think that added too much. It's one of the few cases where I could maybe say that it's just my personal taste getting, like, my personal uncomfortableness getting in the way of, like, was that an effective use of violence? I can't say, because it's too much for me, for sure.
I thought it was effective. I thought the women thing was completely unnecessary.
Yeah,
that was not needed.
But I would say that
and the women is literally like 3 seconds of screen time.
Yeah.
Like the things that have been done to them happened in the past, and it wasn't great. So we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, no, we don't need to go into that. But the point is that either way, Dragged is a much more ambitious plot that has a lot more going on with it. Like, Bone Tomahawk, even my perfect version of it, is an interesting horror western mix of genres with some, like, realism thrown in that makes it interesting, and I think that's very clever, but that's never going to be as ambitious as what he's doing in Drag, where he's really trying to, like, balance a lot of different characters and their reasons.
So even in the ideal cut, you would still prefer Drag?
Yeah, because I think it's a more interesting movie. Like, the characters in Bone Tomahawk, outside of Russell Crowe, are pretty much just there to be there, you know? Like, this is the newbie, this is the kind of bad guy, this is the smart doctor, this is the... And, you know, it's just to set up the plot. These are the, you know, horrible guys who set this all off, you know, because they stole something or did something. I forgot what it was that kicks it all off. But
yeah, see, that's why I kept skipping ahead, because I was just like, yeah, there's generic characters, they're playing their parts.
I do think they did a very good job with their parts and whatnot. Again, like, it was a high production film. It's just like, it's not an ambitious script. It's there to set up some interesting points, and it's done. Whereas this has a lot of really interesting characters, and it's pretty ambitious trying to balance this. There's a lot of people who I think are received better in general as directors who I don't think would have done nearly as good a job making these characters feel real. It would have been way more over the top with, like, someone being, like, just a scumbag while someone else is a complete Mary Sue and blah, 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 blah.
You know, I appreciated that, like, everybody was a mixture of gray except for the guys with the huge guns that were wearing black, and they were all white guys.
Yeah.
Like, I appreciated that, because it's like, yes, most people are not inherently 100% good or 100% bad.
Yeah.
Your most average generic person is going to be shades of gray. But there are going to be, you know, sociopaths out there who are willing to just go and murder a bunch of people and not care about anything.
Yep, and
they're generally the minority.
It's also kind of interesting, I don't know if it's intended, but how it's sort of like they are what actual evil is. Like, everyone else has been dealing with, like, corrupt cops or, you know, gangsters or drug dealers in this story and is upset at them, but, like, you can very easily point to all of them as, like, maybe not victims of circumstance, but, like, flawed humans who aren't understanding, like, aren't making better choices and blah, 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 blah.
But
whereas,
hey,
like,
they're not killing
this
anybody.
is what, like, actual evil looks like. This is what you ought actually
need to fear.
Well, not need to fear, but like, this is what you think it is. This is what those people are actually like the kind you claim don't care about anyone else when they actually do, and they're just, you know, poor, desperate, or, you know, making poor choices or whatever. This is what real evil is, and it's really well done in that regard.
Oh yeah.
But
man, I felt so bad for the black kid by the end, because I was just like, I was so angry when Mel Gibson pulled the gun on him, because I was like, he was gonna do the bet with you, and he was gonna just walk away.
I was almost certain they were both gonna die before the end of that movie.
Oh yeah, we were both like, are they really gonna shoot one another right now? Because that would have been really frustrating.
I have to agree that, I think this is a very good example of, like, Mel Gibson. It makes sense in the morality the movie's trying to portray, where, like, Mel Gibson is too jaded to understand, to trust. Yeah, and so that's why he's the one who dies, whereas the kid who's maybe made some poor choices is at least, like, just trying to do this for his mom and his brother, and, you know, has throughout the entire movie been a good guy. Like, there's a moment where he threatens violence against somebody who he arguably has a good reason to want to threaten violence against, but
one
he
of his
does.
mom's tricks.
Yeah, like, but he doesn't hurt the guy.
He doesn't actually do it though. Yeah.
Well, it's basically like if I ever see you again.
Yeah.
But you know, he doesn't do anything immediately, and so yeah, it's kind of showing that like he's still young enough and uncorrupted enough from like just years of being jaded and miserable that he can trust other people, whereas Mel Gibson can't, and lo and behold, that's what gets him and his friend killed, because his friend also like died because of this. And there were multiple points where he said originally like, yeah, the moment things get hairy, my plan is to just back off, and you know, I'll have to find another one, like when they start this whole thing. And then things got incredibly hairy, incredibly fast on this, and he didn't follow through on that. Neither of them did.
No.
They didn't, you know, like, oh, let's back off. They're like, oh, we can still pull this off. Or, oh, now we have to pull this off because, you know, it's too late. People have been hurt, but there was nothing. It's a lot of justifying their actions rather than coming to terms with, nope, this is way too gone. We're going to call the authorities and we're going to back off. Or, like, even earlier on, they could have been like, this clearly isn't a drug deal. I don't know what's happening, but we'll pass off what information we know to the authorities like 3 days earlier. Like, yeah, we think something's going on. Watch these guys. It's bad. Like, and they could, you know, anonymous tip it. But they didn't because they wanted the money and they were, you know. And so in the morality that the movie's trying to show, it made sense and it worked, and it didn't feel the other kind of stupid where like, oh, well, of course that kid lives because he's the good guy. Like, he definitely...
He made some poor choices.
Yeah, no, and they did a good job by like making him seem like the kind of guy who, like, oh yeah, he was in prison right at the beginning of the movie, and you sort of kind of assume like, okay, he's also got a whole bunch of dirt on him, but when he confesses, like, I've never even killed anyone, you know, like, I only beat up a guy who put my brother in a wheelchair, which is a pretty easy thing to understand.
Oh,
know?
Yeah, I could see myself absolutely doing the same thing.
Yeah, so like, it was well done. I'm glad I watched it, and I'm also glad, again, that it wasn't like, oh, good, I need like 4 days to not watch anything or just watch kittens to clean my brain out.
So, yeah, if you're going to watch one of that guy's movies, Drag Across Concrete's the one.
Yeah, it's a lot more like a traditional film rather than a, hey, watch what we can do.
Yeah.
And that is the end of Larksfoot Crochet Afghan Day 6. I'm done.
And I'm standing here awkwardly.
It's done. I got an hour and 31 minutes of footage. So, yeah. No, that's not a corner. That's a corner. Oh.
Ta-da!
Yeah.
It's a blanket.
It's a big blanket.
What are we doing?
I'm just folding it in half.
You didn't tell me there would be folding.
You didn't ask.
I'm not qualified for this position.
You are. You're fine. Well, yeah. I did that! No! Alright. I guess I'm gonna finish the video like this. Why are you patting me on the head? How dare you? How dare you? I don't think I'm going to crochet a blanket for my brother. I crocheted a blanket for my mom, and now I've crocheted a blanket for my dad. And I want to take a break from the crocheting, but I don't know what I'm going to give my brother. So...
Good job, cousin Ed.
I feel beautiful. Or I feel like I've been beaten up because I'm black and blue. I'm not sure. Hey! Do you have anything you would like to say?
She almost said to add. Did you hear that? She almost said it. She doesn't trust me for some reason.
I wonder why. Earlier, I was hearing like this. And so it took me a while, but I was able to lift that up. And I saw there was a quail there. It was a boy, because he had the feather thingy.
They all have the feather thingy. The boy has...
The girls don't have that big of a feather thingy,
well,
and they're not colorful in the face.
Yeah, the colors are the big thing. So it was colorful?
Very colorful.
So it was
and he was just looking at me, and before I could get the webcam over to show everybody, he scurried away, and he didn't come back yet. So But he was quiet. No, he was quiet. All he did was peck on the window, and you know what? I could accept that. You have to actually be on camera.
Do I?
Yes.
You got mad at me for doing it in public.
I did. He did it in public today. It was embarrassing.
It's the Meet More secret handshake, basically. Without shaking hands, because quail don't have hands.
COVID? Or that, okay.
No, don't be silly, Liz.
I mean, you're the silly one, so.
No, I'm the serious one in the Meet More secret club.
Who's the silly one in the club? It's actually a cult.
It's not a cult.
It's a cult.
Don't be silly. We don't let silly people in the club. That's why you're not in it.
I'm cool with that then. I don't want to be in the club. I would murder everyone.
I see. Why don't you love Meet More? Let him into your heart.
Because he's annoying. And honestly, I feel like he's probably dead now.
Possible.
Poor
We have
guy.
not seen him in a while.
2 weeks. My eye twitch is gone. It lines up. You know, I finally got a week of relaxation without the stupid bird. And I'm good now.
Okay.
Love you.
I'm glad you're no longer traumatized by a tiny creature that most people would consider adorable.
It's cute. It's not, it doesn't sound cute. That's different. No. Okay, let's see. Like, subscribe, share, comment. All of that jazz. And I'll see you guys in the next video. We watched a video recently where the YouTuber was like, all that jazz. And I was like, ah! David was like, oh yeah, that's a problem. And I was like, what? He's like, that's what you do. And I was like, no, it makes it cool. Like, I'm not the only one doing it.
Please elaborate on this in the comments.
Don't waste your time.